All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. So this is another one of our deal or no deal analyses on flipping with Derek Marlin of ELEVATION. Derek, glad to have you back.
Chris, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I know this one. I actually have not seen the slides on this yet, other than I know this is a single-family home in Arvada that you looked at. So set the stage for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a property in a northern suburb of Denver, about 30 minutes outside Denver. It is kind of a traditional single-family home. And it's a property that we looked at and ended up moving forward with. So we'll kind of give a little bit of a spoiler alert, but we'll go through all the details. And this kind of crossed over from the end of 2019 to the very beginning of 2020. So wanted to do one that's a single family in a real hot area of a town called Arvada.
Oh yeah, that is. I know. I mean, we do a lot. We buy a lot of house hacks up there.
Yep.
We like that because it's a great balance of rent to price ratio, great quality of life, and just huge upside. Is that a good area for redevelopment and flipping as well?
I think it is too. I think it's something that is a little bit of kind of our internal thoughts, but if you think of how people's families and lives progress, you get people that are living really core downtown, living in Northwest Denver, Highlands, Sloan's Lake. They inherently have some kids and space gets too small, and also schools become really important. So you migrate kind of continually northwest, in my opinion, to Wheat Ridge. And then you can even get into Arvada, which has good schools as well, a lot more space and good bang for your buck, close to the mountains too. So no, it's a great place, cool old town type of development too. So great, bars, restaurants, retail, the whole nine.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. So this was you said all pre-COVID, right?
Yes, this is 100% pre-COVID. We've got a couple of deals we're working on right now that we sourced in the middle of COVID, and we'll have on future episodes, but they're not closed out. So we want all these kind of very specific facts after post-sale.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
So where did you find the deal from?
This one was sourced directly off of the MLS. We purchased this one in mid-November. The deal was listed, immediately went under contract. We kept an eye on it. We didn't get an offer in because a lot of times when we have our number in mind, we'll call the respective listing agent and say, this is roughly where we need to be. If they have a couple of offers, then we typically make it. But if they have a ton of offers and we're a little bit lower, we don't want to submit an offer that's going to, essentially give them more work to do and have us not a good likelihood of success. That deal fell out, and so we immediately resubmitted and got the property under contract, and this was just before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yep.
So was this property listed, was it listed as an investor or flipper special? Were they kind of marketing it towards, that audience, or was it more just a traditional listing that went stale?
Kind of a traditional listing that went stale. The layout was really quirky too, so I think that it had a little smaller audience of traditional homeowners that wanted to buy it, but this was in definitely better condition than the majority of the properties that we buy. So it didn't have your classic terms of investor special, bring your tool belt, sweat equity, those types of key phrases. This one was kind of a classic home that had been, well lived in, if you will, but definitely not a disaster like some of the ones that we've done recently.
So just very dated?
Yeah, definitely dated, and then just kind of a quirky layout. So I think a lot of people in the current format couldn't envision how you could do it. And we'll dive into how we changed this property. But I think that, made it to where it wasn't quite as hot. So they had a handful of offers. But like you said, it's a good part of town. So there was definitely activity. But it was not your classic investor special, super disaster trash property.
And what part of Arvada was it in? Or is it in?
Yeah, it's only about 1 mile from Old Town.
Okay.
Which is where the light rail drops into Main Street that has those shops and restaurants and retail and mixed-use office space. So really close to that part of town. There's also really neat parks. They've done a lot of great things as far as the city goes of reinvesting tax dollars and putting really nice parks over there of what was kind of weird barren land probably 15 years ago. So it's a really good kind of close proximity spot.
Yeah, I do like their parks and bike paths up there.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Okay, so talk about the just the offer and the structure of the contract you put in.
So this one, we really feel like many people can be a cash buyer. And they can close quickly. So we try to come to the table with different solutions. So on this one, it had fallen apart. We came in, we went back in fully at asking.
And sorry, do you know why it fell out of contract?
We don't. Yeah, sometimes people will tell us and other times they don't. So we did not know in particular why this one fell out. For us, the good news is we do our own inspection. So we're not really worried about how did the inspection go. which is what a lot of people worry about. So for us, it was really simple and straightforward. We definitely offered to close quickly, but then we found out with it, what they needed some time to rent back. It was right over the holidays. And so we were happy to do a full cash offer, 2-week close, so they had money in the bank. We did a rent back. In this one, sometimes we do a rent back with actual rent for the time they're there. We also do a security deposit. In this instance, it was only 2.5 weeks that they needed. So we actually said, we're not going to charge any rent. We'll withhold a security deposit from your proceeds. And all you have to do, this is not a regular rental move out. Just take your stuff and lock the door behind you. You don't need to clean. You don't need to fix anything. Just take your stuff. And they were great with that. So that helped us get the deal.
Nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then this one is just a classic single family home in Arvada. We were looking at this one, and this is one of the reasons why I don't think that it probably moved quite as quickly or had as many offers. It was originally constructed as a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. There was one non-conforming bedroom in the basement. This is one where you'd almost call it a tri-level, meaning that there is living space on 3 individual levels, but it's not the format where you walk in the front door and are forced to make a decision of which way to go. We kind of avoid those properties because I think it's hard for people to see which way you can use that space.
And I've never talked to anyone that actually enjoys walk in and go up or go down.
Yes. And so this one, but it was a funky layout where you walked in on the main level, but there was a weird half wall that kept you from walking into a living room. And then when you walked up into the second level of the property into what would be more of the dining room and the kitchen area, there was a huge closet, and it made you feel like you were walking in a little hallway getting up to that second floor. So we blew that out. And then the big thing that we go back and forth with these type of properties, keep it a 4-2. I'm sure your listeners always think, okay, great, more value, more bedrooms. But in this instance, there was no master suite, and we knew it was a family play. And so we actually ended up converting it from a 4-bedroom, took one of the bedrooms upstairs. So the existing layout was you walk up another 4 stairs to the, let's call it the top floor, if you will. And there were 3 kind of smaller bedrooms and 1 hallway bathroom. We kept the hallway bathroom, and then we ended up taking the 2 bedrooms that were stacked side by side in the back of the property and converted one of those bedrooms into a master suite and made a really huge master ensuite with a bedroom and a bathroom. So we actually took it from a 4-2 to a 3-3. But we can talk about it here as we progress in the episode of why that ended up being a good deal. Normally we end up going that way. I think there's some people that would probably keep it a 4-2, but there weren't as many comps in the area that had a classic master suite, and we thought that would bring a lot of value, and it ended up doing a pretty good job.
So I'm assuming this was probably like a late 60s or 70s build.
Yes.
And then and most of those houses around there didn't have a master suite?
Yeah, they really didn't. In that price point, there were not a lot of master suites. You had to go quite a bit more expensive. Or if it did, it was actually a smaller property. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, more of a ranch. This one ended up, when it was finished, having just over 2,400 total square feet.
Oh, so it's a good-sized house.
Pretty good size. The other ones that had master suites were your classic ranch, where you had maybe 1,500 square feet. So we just figured, let's fix this up, and we've had track record of doing that in a couple different suburban types of homes. And especially when you're paying, a good chunk of change on the back end, and near that $500,000 mark, people want a master suite. They can still give their kids a bath in the hallway bathroom or have guests stay downstairs, but that definitely goes a long ways doing that master.
And so you've noticed a difference in your ARVs with, if there's a master suite, you'll see a bump in the ARV, if it drops the overall bedroom count?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you have a minimum number of beds. So
probably 3, right?
Exactly. As long as you can remain and have 3 beds as your finishing point, then you're in really good shape. I would be a little leery of having a master, only doing a 2-2 if you were in a suburban type of setting. That works in more central core Denver of hip parts of town where you're not attracting big families. But if you've got a family, I think you definitely need 3 bedrooms at a minimum to, widest audience.
Okay. So what did you buy this place for? I know you say you went all cash, full ask. What was it listed at?
We did. So we bought this one at $375.
Okay.
Yep, all cash, and we bought it in November. Again, we always pay the closing costs as well, and so that's one of the other reasons why we get the deal. And then we rehabbed it through the holidays and then put it back on the market here in first quarter of 2020.
So good timing.
Yes.
And I'm curious, sorry, kind of looping back around to the deal structure here. Did the agent call you back when it came on the market, or were you just keeping your eye out on MLS alerts?
No, they did not call us back. You would actually think that they would have. Normally, we do get a call back.
Don't give listing agents that much credit.
Right, that's a good point. No, we really keep an eye on it, and we have daily searches so that the second it came back on market, and we have one set up for the city of Arvada. So, yeah, we immediately saw it and then quickly put in an offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you ask the agent, hey, if anything happens, give us a call? But you did that standard line, but
we did.
Yeah.
We did, and we tell people, we say we buy a lot of properties as either a traditional backup, or I will actually submit, or I just say, hey, let me be your first call.
Yeah.
And a lot of agents do a great job and call us back, and we've bought a number of properties when stuff falls apart. And we really assess it. Sometimes if it is a deal that was a little bit thin, then we'll end up going back at a little bit lower price. In this instance, we knew the deal was a good one overall, so we just went right back in at our existing offer, which was asking price. Didn't have to pay over, which was nice, and they were super happy. And then we inspect it with our in-house team, which is myself, my project manager. Probably 80% of the projects will actually bring one of our general contractors that we've built a great relationship with, so that they can see what we're doing. And this one, structurally, it looked really good. And then we'll talk about it here at the end of the episode. We didn't really need an engineer, but on this one, we actually didn't do a sewer scope.
Why?
That is a mistake.
Okay, is that just slipped through the cracks?
100% a mistake. Yeah,
that bites you, and I guess we'll find out later.
And that's something that, we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I think sometimes on everybody's podcast, we all talk about these amazing deals, and nobody ever hears about mistakes or problems. So I wanted to actually pick this specific property as a shame on me for the guy being in charge that we didn't follow our own systems.
Because I imagine it's on your checklist, right? Because I mean, that's on our checklist, and I think you have much more detailed checklist if you're flipping, and it just got overlooked.
It is 100% in bold, and so we'll talk a little bit more details in a little bit. But no, that is definitely very, very top of the list of major systems. There's 6 things we're always looking for, and this is one of them.
Hey, no one bats 100%.
That's right.
All right, so you did inspection, anything, I mean, because you guys had walked the property before, right?
Correct.
Okay, so during the inspection, any major things pop up they weren't expecting, or anything you had to go back and renegotiate with the seller on?
No, everything looked really good. This was a unique property because at some point, one of the owners had almost dug out a basement, which ended up being really good storage. It was full of tons of stuff, so we did our best to see what was going on structurally, moving a little bit of stuff around, but there was a little bit of a risk that we took, making sure that kind of unique storage area wasn't going to be finished, no matter how we were going to rehab the property. But everything looked good, and they moved out, and everything continued to look good. So, which is nice. We had another property that wasn't the case, so that's why you have your contingencies.
Mm-hmm. And then I did this cash purchase, 2-week close, a few week rent back.
Yep.
And we do the same. A lot of times we don't charge rent on the rent back for a few weeks. It just makes the offer look better.
Yep.
I'm curious. So, what'd you hold as a deposit?
$1,500.
Okay.
Yeah. So our kind of, we want it to be enough so that they're just cognizant of not digging, holes in the front yard or busting up drywall or doing something silly, and that's going to cost us money. But we don't want it too insignificant where they say, well, it's going to cost me way more to, move all my 5 couches and 15 mattresses out of there. So, it's got to be enough, but not too much, even though it's typically taken out of their proceeds. So it's not money they think they're having to spend. Sometimes people have that perception as, oh, wait, I have to put down a deposit. It's like, no, you just get a little less at closing.
Yeah.
You guys move out, everything looks good, the title company gives you that extra money back.
And you make them get renter's insurance those couple of weeks and all that? Yeah.
Yes, definitely renter's insurance. We still insure it from day one when we close on it, but we have just that extra level of security for, renter's insurance.
Cool.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of curious to see what your analysis is.
Yeah, so your audience can jump online. We had some before pictures of the property, and so we can kind of talk a little bit about what we did. This was one where we went in and it was a little more cosmetic in nature than what we typically do. So they actually had nice cabinets that we were going to continue to use. They also already had put in granite countertops. This is the price point where we start to think about, do we need quartz? But we thought they looked nice enough, kind of off backsplash. So we demoed all the backsplash and then took the upper cabinets out, because they were very small and just made actually the space feel smaller.
Are those really short upper cabinets?
They are.
Okay.
They're only 24 inches in height, and so they're just kind of odd. We couldn't find them either. We couldn't match, and if this was just a normal white shaker cabinet, we would actually go and buy your traditional 30 or 42-inch uppers, but those weren't available in this style. And so we actually took those out and ended up doing kind of that modern-looking shelving, because the rest of the kitchen had a ton of storage, so we didn't cannibalize the storage too terribly much.
And just to describe, I mean, from the 4 photos I see, 2 of them have quite a few sloped ceilings.
Yes.
So you kind of got that, I don't know, I'm not a fan of kind of that funky ceiling slope going on. And that's probably what affected the cabinets, it looks like, right?
It did. They had a weird drop ceiling in the kitchen. We weren't quite sure why, because you absolutely could open it up, which is what we did. So we took the ceiling height in the kitchen from feeling kind of closed off and not nearly as inviting, and raised it about 4 feet.
Oh, so it's just a drop ceiling?
It was just a weird drop ceiling. So yeah, we took that out, and the goal with this house was to make it look a little more mid-century modern in style, which is what we normally do with a lot of these kind of ranches that aren't 100% mid-mod, which is that 50s classic style. We try to add elements to it that appeal to the people that like that style, but also to the general buying public too.
And just looking, again, we're looking at 4 photos here, but I mean, just as far as like location and quality, kind of give some context to our listeners out there, it looks like in really good shape.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, whatever, I'm not a fan of the ceiling, but that doesn't really matter for rental properties, but this is type of stuff we buy for house hacks all the time, and this is, pretty much move-in ready for a house hack and future rental property. Is that the rest of the house kind of looks like that?
Yeah, it really, really does. Just some kind of personal tastes that were a little off that made it not as conducive to them probably getting top dollar. But for us, again, this leans a lot more cosmetic in nature, since we were able to keep the cabinets, keep the countertops. The hardwood floors were really, really nice. And this one, you're actually able to do a process called screening, which is almost like taking a steel wool and just taking the top, 30-second off of the hardwood floor and putting a new varnish down, versus your big sander where you're walking behind it and doing true refinishing. So again, these are little things that save you a couple $1,000 at each turn.
So you call that screening?
Yeah, it's called screening.
Okay.
So it's a faster process. It's less expensive. And it's just taking those super, super fine scratches out and then give you a nice new coat, versus refinishing if there's a lot of deeper scratches, an old stain that's really kind of off and dated looking. You've got to do a true belt sander, and it's a much more expensive and time-consuming process.
So screening is just a lot cheaper per square foot?
Yeah, cheaper per square foot, almost about $1.50 a square foot cheaper.
Okay, so that adds up.
And faster, yeah, so it definitely adds up. And then we've got the other picture of, they had interestingly enough, a 1/4 master where it was literally just a toilet and a sink. So the nice thing is they had already done some plumbing. It was just kind of a funky layout, so it made it easy for us to then, again, cannibalize that second bedroom upstairs and make kind of a nice master suite.
And we're able to tie into the existing plumbing they had already put up there?
Were.
Okay.
Yep, we had to add a little bit more, but we were able to do that. And then, a lot of our projects are, you kind of just decide at what price point you're selling it on the back end for ARV and how much do you need to do. You can kind of see in these photos that the front yard was quite xeriscaped. Again, in more expensive price points, we probably would have done a lot more, put in some sod, but you just kind of clean up the yard and make it really presentable, and the same in the back. So again, this kind of leans a little more cosmetic in nature when we first bought the property.
And you kept it xeriscape out front?
Yeah, we kept it xeriscaped out.
I mean, I love xeriscape landscaping because it's no maintenance, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you seeing a trend on like buyers or people happier about that? What's the feedback you get versus like, or just depend?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really just depends. I almost feel like it's a 50-50 split. There's pros of people that love it, and there's 50% of cons of people that aren't quite as into it and want more of that grass. I think a lot of it is also based on the neighborhood. So in the suburban areas, I think you do want more. I think people are open to xeriscaping in the front, but in the back, you definitely want some grass so that, kiddos can be outside.
Oh, I agree.
Playing and running around. But the front, people seem pretty conducive to being okay with xeriscaping.
I mean, the only time I ever walk my front lawn was to push the lawnmower.
Right.
I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah. So overall, it was kind of a straightforward one. It just looked, your audience can jump on the show notes. It just looked plain is the easiest way to say, especially from the exterior.
Yeah.
So there were no shutters. You've got a mixture of brick and siding. Things weren't really conducive. It didn't look like the house kind of was tied together. One car attached garage. So straightforward layout, but just just kind of a vanilla type of a house, which is great for what we're doing. So we'll go on to kind of some of the afters.
So I see the upper shell, or the shells replace the uppers.
Yep.
Outside, looks like you painted the brick that typical, I'll say, flipper gray.
Yes.
I don't know what they're called, but
that should be the next Sherwin-Williams color. They should make flipper gray because they need more names.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, so the floor looks the same from the photos.
Yep.
But obviously inside, you updated again with, just painted that. You painted the wood paneling on the ceilings.
Correct.
So yeah, it just looks like a great refresh.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that, we did some backsplash. Right, we painted the ceilings, paint the fireplace. And your comment about flipper gray, I think that's funny. And I also think that it's the truth. But it takes out the emotion to it, because if everybody put what you think you personally like or what people might like in 10 years, we can't forecast that. So we really just roll with, on a year-by-year basis, what is most popular and trending, because that's the audience we want to apply to or appeal to. And then after that, if somebody wants to paint their house or change it, then good on them. But yeah, we really try to kind of take that emotional tie out, and we know what works. And we have 3 different kind of color palettes. But so we did that. And then we really wanted to show depth. So we painted the brick a darker color, and then we painted the siding a lighter color. And then we're really big proponents of using cedar. That natural wood and that texture gives it the house depth and makes it look, again, kind of more updated and a bit mid-century modern.
So I see the cedar shutters. Did you leave, is that still vinyl siding on there?
That is still vinyl siding, yeah. And then another side, if you're painting vinyl siding, you have to use a specific type of paint that is constructed for vinyl siding and rated to take that heat. It's definitely more expensive from a product perspective. We learned that the hard way my second year in the business, where we didn't vet the painting company to confirm that they were using vinyl rated paint, and looked beautiful, listed the house, and then it literally looked like bacon on the side of the house. The siding completely warped because it got so hot, and we had to reside one of our properties. So
yeah, I've seen that happen. So that was from the not right paint choice.
Correct. So you're going to pay a little more, but it's well worth it.
So I'm just noticing now, did you stain the lower cabinets in the kitchen?
We did a stain, because they were kind of more of a natural finish, but they weren't done. So yeah, we stained the natural, kind of to bring the natural color out. So not really a drastic color change, but just more of kind of a sprucing it up.
Gives a better contrast with the floor as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And this was one where we'll talk about the budget here in a second. We started to see the market really, really heat up in this part of Arvada. There was no inventory. And so this is when we also start to make strategic decisions of, okay, if we spend a little more in certain areas, can we get that bang for the buck? And so one of them, looking at this photo of the kitchen tile floor was decent. We had originally bought it and budgeted to keep it, but then we went in and everything else looked so good, so we ended up doing the floor. So a couple things like that ended up being the right decision and right call, but we really try to stick to our budget, but from time to time you kind of sprinkle in certain design elements that you see when things run up, you feel like you can get a good bang for your buck.
Or Miss Sewer Scopes.
Yeah. So,
I'm going to have to bust your chops on that for all day.
Oh, yeah. So when you get to the numbers thing, this is definitely one where we need to take our lumps and show people that you got to, you spend all this time and energy creating a system, you have to stick to that system. Yeah. And then we just put more cedar on the front. Kind of a little trick that we do is to make it look cohesive, we try to bring in a cedar component on both sides of the house too. And so we ended up surrounding the door. They had taken off weird kind of junky soffit and fascia, and you'd either have to try to match the siding, which sometimes is really hard to do. You don't want to spend time or money doing masonry work or adding more brick, and so we put in the cedar that kind of wraps the door. It looks cool with the numbers on it, and those are actually pickets from a fence.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's kind of a simple, inexpensive, but really kind of a nice way to spruce that thing up. And fast and easy and looks kind of nicer than probably what it would cost you to do that.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then last thing is we just addressed the master. So we ended up framing it out so that we had a full nice shower. We decided, since there was a bathtub in the hall bathroom, on the main area where mom and dad or the parents are going to stay, and then kiddos are going to be there. So if you've got a younger kiddo, they're going to be able to take a bath in the hallway bathroom. But we find that the people that want that really nice clean master, they actually want a bigger shower than another bathtub. So we definitely do that and do nicer tile, double vanities, and kind of move the toilet around. And just on this one also, when we do those 2 back-to-back rooms, you don't want to cannibalize parts of your bedroom, so we always do barn doors. So rather than swinging into your bathroom or swinging out into your bedroom, as we always kind of divide these as far as how you're entering your master with the barn door, and then we try to tie the inside to the outside. So we've got cedar on the outside. Our barn door is normally cedar, and then our mantle, we build a custom mantle on the fireplace, and so we want it to look cohesive from inside to out.
Nice.
So now we can talk about numbers. So again, we purchased the property. The way that we buy in-house is we've got an agent, or one of my staff members is an agent, so we can actually collect some commission up front. So a 375 buy is actually a 367 purchase to us.
Because you're taking out some of the commission?
Because I'm taking out some of the commission. Yep, and my staff receives kind of bonuses and compensation as a part of their compensation. So our back-end ARV was, we thought, very conservatively at $515,000 would be where we could sell this. Initial rehab budget was just under $60,000, so it was $59,600. So again, $515,000 ARV. This is just slightly better than our kind of bread and butter flip, which is normally about $140,000 in spread. So you're right there. Again, we really ended up touching the vast majority of this house, and our goal was to change it to a 3-3. Inspecting it we knew that we needed to do the roof. That was the only major system that we had planned for. Kept the cabinets, kept the countertops. Was going to be a 90-day project, 60 days worth of rehab. And then again, determining ARV, there were 10 or 12 really good comps, so it was pretty straightforward to comp this one, and our projected profit was just over $50,000. So it's $50,371, which is kind of right in our sweet spot. This is kind of our good/standard single-family home where you're in and out in 2 months worth of work, right at that $50,000 price point. This is kind of our straightforward bread and butter.
I was gonna say, just a solid base hit, right?
Yeah, solid base hit. I know you're a baseball guy, so this is just our normal double, like something that's good, clean, simple, straightforward. That's what we projected going in, and now we can talk about how. So
sorry, flip back one more. I just want to see. So I know your metrics. So you had a 10.8% ROI, which is the yellow.
Yep.
Your daily burns at 72, which is yellow. Your profits at just over 50,000, so green box, and your dollars per day, which that's your preferred metric, right?
It is.
You're at 560, which is in the green as well.
It is.
I just want. Okay, now I'm curious to see the next one.
Yeah, thank you, and that's definitely a bit higher for us. Our goal is to be $450 per day net profit or more. So that's definitely what led me towards this property of thinking. Not only are we making a good overall net profit of just over $50,000, but we're making it relatively quickly. So now we can kind of go.
Oh, sorry, one random question for you. So I see your holding time is 90 days. So you did a 2 or 3 week rent back period. Are you counting your holding time from the day you close or day you actually take possession?
Actually, on this one, we ran it of the day we take possession.
Okay.
And normally, if we have a rent back and we're charging rent, I try to get that rent to cover what my holding costs are.
Yeah.
So that, the day that we start, we've kind of accounted for that from an expense standpoint before that. And then, the day we start rehabbing it and the day we sell it should be in 90 days.
So for those 2 or 3 weeks, whatever amount, you have a couple dollars in carrying cost. Is one of those things, is it just like, hey, the numbers are good enough, you don't worry about getting that detailed on it because it's just a couple weeks, but numbers are good enough?
Yes.
Okay.
I do for anything that's $1,000 or less. We're not going to get too terribly worried about it. If it ends up being $1,000 or more, which is normally 2 weeks or more of renting it back, then we actually charge them rent, and then the goal is to hopefully have that rent cover whatever my carrying cost is.
But the $1,000 is your threshold? That makes sense,
$1,000 is the threshold.
I've got rules like that too. Hey, it's below this, like, who cares? It's not worth figuring out. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's almost the same thing that we have actually as a rule with our contractors. And then I've got internally with my project manager is for the contractors, if it's a change order that's $250 or less, and they deem it as necessary, they can do it. They can tell me about it that day, and then we sign off on the change orders later that week. Anything that's over 250 is we have to actually approve that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just certain things. It's like how can you scale and what's worth your time? So here's what we ended up doing is, again, we converted it to a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. We saw the market really running up, both with a lack of inventory and then things that were very averagely finished out, having run-ups and selling far over asking. So this is where we started to actually do a little bit more work on the property. So we mentioned we added tile in the kitchen. We decided to do that for the flooring. We decided to we didn't decide. So this is kind of an interesting one. So we ended up selling the property. We listed it still at $515,000.
Okay.
We definitely thought that 525 was a really, really very realistic ARV and where we thought that it would sell for. The good thing is we typically try to list on a Thursday, so that showings start either late Thursday or first thing Friday morning. Showings all the way through Sunday, and then we typically try to have a decision made by Monday. This one we had 46 showings. We had 16 offers, and 10 of them were substantially above asking. We actually on this one ended up going under contract at $555.
Oh wow!
So a good chunk above asking. This one, the overall hold time ended up being 110 days instead of the 90 that we had projected, for 2 reasons. One, we ended up having to do more work on the property. And second, this is the first one we've had in a while that actually fell out of contract. So we got, of course, sworn up and down from the buy-side agent that the clients love the house. This is their dream house, this, that, and the other. And then they did their inspection and ended up getting cold feet. And
so they just did the inspection termination?
They did the inspection termination, didn't give us a lot to go off of, and we really try to, not pry is the right word, but we want to know, because a lot of times if it's something that's super straightforward, either it's probably already my scope of work with my contractor, so I can do it and I've essentially already paid for it, or especially when properties run up in profit, we want to do good business too. So if it's things here and there that makes sense for me to spend $1,000 to keep a deal that's $35,000 over asking, I'm going to do that in a heartbeat.
Throw a few bucks at it for sure.
Totally throw a few bucks at it. So unfortunately that fell through. So the next week, this is where we really try to stay in touch with anybody that of course submitted an offer. Luckily my in-house agent called, let's call it an offer number 2 back. They were about to submit on an offer. We were really, really lucky. They'd been thinking about the house, bummed that they lost out. So we ended up going under contract. Again, we don't tell the people where we go under contract. So we just say, give us your best offer. So they came back at $552,500. So $2,500 less than what we were under contract for in the first place. But where we really wish that we would have actually have known what they were looking for is, this is where I need to take my lumps, is they did a sewer scope, and the sewer line was totally cracked and shot. So that really goes to literally check every box on your checklist that I went back and looked at it and had assumed that my staff had sewer scoped it. They assumed that I had checked, approved it, and we didn't. And that was almost an $8,000 really, really painful mistake.
So just replace the whole sewer line?
So yeah, replace the whole sewer line. And we're lucky that we've got great relationships. I think if that was just a run-of-the-mill retail type of replacement, that would have been a $10,000 or $11,000 job. But luckily, we do a lot of business with 4 or 5 contractors around town, and so we were able to do it. And we were actually able to do it before it closed to keep the deal together. The other thing on the inspection was we ended up having to update the panel. We did
electrical panel?
Yeah, we ended up updating the electrical panel. And that one was kind of an odd one because we had gotten everything inspected and everything, looked good. We didn't really, besides adding some electrical to the master bathroom, the panel could handle it. But then when they had a master electrician go in, they really kind of beat us up on the panel. And that was kind of a tough point that you get to as an investor, and you say, there really isn't a reason why we should be conceding to this, but do I want to go back on the market And so my rule of thumb is normally as long as I can keep that expense or that repair under what 1 month of carrying cost is, I do it and either fix, A, B, or C, or I do a price reduction. So this one, the panel in our world is normally a $2,500 expense. That is my carrying costs plus another month of staging. And so it's a no-brainer, and that's why we ended up going back at $552. So even, after some of those mistakes, we got lucky in the run-up. I mean, if things had stayed static, this would have been, a $30,000 profit, and that would have been, yellows and reds for us, especially spending, a decent amount of money. So this goes to show you, like, you have to, I don't care how many you do, you have to double check your own self.
Yeah, because what's jumping out to me as I read your spreadsheet here, and of course this is on the blog post if you guys want to see it yourself, but like your profit on the after analysis or the actual analysis is about $52,000, which is what, like $1,000 or $2,000 higher than the other one.
Yep.
But your daily profit, dropped quite a bit from, was it 600 something? Yeah, from 560 to 475. So that was one thing that jumped out is that, that's a significant drop per day. But your profit stayed about the same because of the run up, and even though your rehab went like $20,000 or $30,000 more.
Yeah,
that was the saving grace.
It did. That was the saving grace, and you're right. That's why we really try to focus on dollars per day. So, all things being equal, let's say these are two different properties that we're looking to purchase. We'll actually go with the one that is faster and a higher dollar per day of a $50,000 profit versus a $52,000 profit because it's almost $100 a day less. In net profit, because again, we want to turn that money as fast as possible. So it's, again, ended up being still a very good project for us, and I really like the way that the product itself turned out, and the buyers loved it. So there's some definite positives, but absolutely, it's like bite the bullet and take your lumps, and that's an expensive, mistake, and you have to follow your system, especially when you've created them.
And when did you list this property?
So we listed this one in February.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
February, and then closed it in late February. So just before Corona.
And I remember too, because that's starting out in winter or springtime, but at least this year for us, if you can remember before COVID, at least like the spring buying frenzy started earlier.
It did.
It felt like for us, and talking to other agents, like right around like that, I don't know, 3rd or 4th week of January, I felt like we just things like, holy crap, I guess March is here.
Yep.
Is what we said. And so that's, I think you guys hit good timing on that. And you also, there's like no inventory around there at the same time.
Yeah, there was no inventory.
Yeah, great.
It's the best. There are only three, maybe 4 houses within $100,000 of us. And of that, none of them were actual flips. So, literally this became, if you wanted something that was remotely fixed up, this is, literally your only option from roughly $400,000 to $500,000. You're either getting something way smaller and less fixed up, or much bigger and much more expensive. So that's another thing that we do is we try to underwrite and analyze our deals conservatively. But if we see there's nothing on the market and we've got a fixed product, that's when we might increase the price just a little bit. Not a function of I spent more, which in this instance would have been, kind of made sense because we did spend more. You got to take your lumps in that. It's, will the market handle that? And if we didn't see that, we would have listed it at $515 and just been frustrated and, made our money and moved on.
Yeah, saying you replace a sewer scope in the description is not going to, people don't care. That's not going to justify the higher price.
Yes.
That's one of the things people don't appreciate. Cool. Well, Derek, this has been phenomenal.
Thank you.
And again, to kind of wrap up a few things, all the before and after photos, the 2 spreadsheets, those are on the show notes, so check those out. And also just some general feedback. This is the 4th of kind of the 4 series. When Derek and I had coffee a month or 2 ago, kind of mapping out some more marketing collaboration to do. We plan on doing these dealer no deals. And so we got these 4 planned out. We're going to do more in the future. We don't have anything on the calendar now, but we'll definitely do more in the future together. But we would love to hear you guys' feedback on just, what you like or what nuances you want to go down, or details you want more of. Shoot me an email, shoot Derek an email. We do take that feedback consideration. So if there's more specific details you want to know on, let us know. Because as you know, we like to actually go into details on here, not just fluff content. So please reach out. And Derek, just kind of like for some general information, I know people can download the spreadsheet off the website or email you.
Correct.
And then you're also, I know a while ago you had an academy an academy tentatively planned for July
Right.
with COVID stuff. Is that still
Yeah.
going on, or did COVID crush it?
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of pushback of people not feeling comfortable being in a room together, which I completely understand and respect. And so we're going to move that to later in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. So your audience can check in. We definitely are going to still hold that 2-day training academy. But then we're also starting back up our meetups in the field so that we can do teaching for people on site, because we can space out a lot better in a house too. So we've got a neat single family home that we're going to start on in August from a renovation perspective. So we'll be holding meetups and on-site trainings for free for clients that want to come check out what we're doing. And so there'll be details about doing stuff on site and getting back out in the field, but still spacing out.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, let us know your questions or feedback. We'll be doing more of these. Derek, thanks again, man.
Chris, thanks for having me.